Exactly. It's the loss of trust. So it's not just about how you stop trusting yourself because now you feel like you don't even know how to assess situations, but obviously you don't trust the person who did this to you, but it's hard to trust anybody else. And when this happened to me, I dealt with it like I was very brittle. It was seriously one of the like worst things I've ever gone through in my life, and it was this compounded pain, and I've talked about this before on here. But I that happened to me after I was divorced, and it was like my first big relationship after my divorce, and I felt like super super hard, which is like kind of common, right? Because when you're well, so when it happened, I was completely blindsided. It made it hurt a million times worse than it ever needed to, right? Because I knew instantly, like, I don't want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with me. I don't want to be with someone who would treat me this way. But it compounded because, and there have been like essays written about this, but basically, like, when you're going through a divorce, and especially if it's like you instigated it or you just fully agree, like, it should not happen, you're dealing with like a lot of minutia, a lot of like stress, like you're trying to untangle your life from somebody else. And when you're going through that, like the other person is, I mean, you might be going through it really well and it might actually be happening just fine. But for a lot of people, it's not happening very well. You're dealing with somebody who like you really don't want to see, you don't want to talk to, you don't like, and you have to untangle your life from this person, and it takes a long time, and you're trying to like negotiate in good faith with someone who's like not acting like the person that you know. So when you go through this breakup, you're normally like you're mourning the loss of that person, that love, that change in your life, right? And but also this vision that you had of your future, but not just with that person, but also the marriage. So it's like multiple things happening at once. Like I had this future in my head, and the other thing that I really mourned at that time was I had told myself that, after 40, like I wouldn't have another child. And when I got divorced, like when I left, I was like 37 or 38. And I knew like I was like, okay, if I meet someone and we get married and they want to have a kid, like maybe I'll extend. But I was really like, okay, by the time I'm like 40, 41, like I'm not going to do this again. And so he basically like took up my last good years, and I knew he didn't want more kids, and I'd accepted that because I wasn't so hell-bent on having more children that I was like willing to, you know, push it, or I was only going to pick people who wanted more children, right? I just wanted to like move in with someone and like have a happy life, and I just wanted it to be someone who loved my child. And I it hurt a lot. It was probably one of the worst pains I've ever been through, and I've had people I love very much like pass on. People who are close to me, who are my anchors to this world, pass on. And it didn't hurt as much as this did because it was so, so sudden. And in retrospect, I look back and I know what it was. So he was a lot older than me, 12 years older. And he wanted someone who was agreeable and compliant. And I was coming out of like being with someone who was super controlling. I was raised by someone who was really controlling. Like that was comfortable to me. And it felt like, oh, that's how I know someone cares, is because they're really like paying attention to my life. And I ignored a lot of red flags, but at that time I did not, like the last time I had dated, I had been a teenager, right? So it wasn't like I knew very well what was going on. And he wanted someone who wasn't going to push him or challenge him or ever like make him feel bad about himself. Like he really wanted someone he could like look at and reflect and be like, oh, I got her, so I must be an okay guy. And what happened was, as I got like farther out of my divorce and I started to like, I left my ex-husband, I left my marriage with nothing. I had nothing. I had no friends. He'd alienated me from everyone. I didn't have any, I had no money. My family wasn't around. They'd said they would support me, and then they completely turned their backs on me in like the most egregious way. So, and they didn't live nearby, but they like really just, they said they'd help, and then they did like the absolute opposite of it. And I had to like start my new life. And I really, I thank him for all the advice because, he'd been divorced too with kids and like understood, a lot of stuff that I was going through and kind of like gave me that long view of stuff so I didn't react in the moment. There were a lot of like great things about our relationship. But in the end, when I started having my own opinions and my own thoughts and feelings, and I started to express them, and not even like argumentatively, just like I would have a boundary. So I think what broke the camel's back was that we gone out, we'd had like an amazing weekend, right? And then like the Wednesday after, we were supposed to go to this event. Like we had a date planned, and it was like they have these kind of opening reception things, at the art museum, and we were supposed to go to one. And so he was going to pick me up when I was done with work, and he showed up like 20 minutes early. And I was like, oh, I'm not like ready at all yet. Like I was in like a sundress and like, just working at home. And he was like, that's fine. He came in and he was like so nervous. And then he just like broke up with me, just like out of nowhere. And I think it was because that night he wanted to go to like a work happy hour with people like he constantly complained about and said like he constantly talked about them behind their back and complained about them all the time, and then wanted to drive like a full like hour east for someone's birthday party the night that we were like supposed to go out. And so I was kind of like, well, you and I had plans, and you're not even inviting me to this happy hour, and I know all your coworkers, and we had plans, and the right thing for you to do is to like keep the plans. And basically I had a boundary and I expressed it, and that was too much for him. So I dealt with that. When I did start dating again, I dated people who I don't know how to phrase this. I dated people who I knew were going to feel like, I felt like they were not going to hurt me. They would let me break up. They would have me break up with them first before they broke up with me. And they would like take whatever I had to offer. And that wasn't great either, but it was like the way I felt safe. And then after that, I took like a while, and I didn't date for much, and I focused on work.